House and Bucks Radio, I tend to extend things out a little bit here this week and calling upon many, many old friends. Bye week around here is almost a catch-up with a lot of folks. Jim Williams is our longtime media examiner around here. He's a multi-time Emmy Award-winning TV producer, but he also lives here in Baltimore, works in the DMV, and is now doing some stuff for Huffington Post. You can follow his journey, and tens of thousands do, on Twitter at JWMediaDC. That's a new Twitter handle for you, Jim Williams. But you're still Baltimore through and through, although I see a whole lot of D.C. going on here. But, I know you've moved toward the political space and, from the sports space into that space and Huffington Post. And, I got to say, and this is the wildest part for me, I'm 27 years as of December 13th into this thing. And I can't imagine, being on the radio, and I don't have a boss, and my bosses are the listeners and the sponsors, probably as it should be. But I don't have anybody with their thumb on me telling me what to say, how to say it, when to say it, where to say it, when not to say it. I don't know what it would be like to work for ESPN right now, and maybe you could speak to that because you've worked in and out of ESPN and many, many cable news outlets. Yeah. But the whole notion of being hired for your opinion, for your expertise, for your analysis, for your quote-unquote column, or your commentary, or your editorial, all of that, I don't know where we're going with that when major news organizations are saying to stars, don't say that ever, not there, not here, not anywhere. You're not allowed to comment on that. That just seems really weird to me in a free society, Jim.
Well, as Nestor, the term that is basically, a buzzword is influencer. They want to get influencers. And they look at your Twitter account. They look at your Instagram account. They look at every aspect of social media, what you're doing on Snapchat, Tumblr. All of this stuff. They want people who are, quote-unquote, influencers. Now, with that comes an interesting situation. Influencers sometimes say things that, are counterintuitive to what goes on at the network. So if you really want somebody who is an influencer, right, who says things and does things, and then you turn around and basically say to them, oh, no, wait, you can do that, but don't do this because, you might tick off one of our partners. Well, then what exactly are you doing? Are you in a business or are you in a journalistic situation? What are you in? And I think right now, ESPN is having one of those phases where they don't know exactly what the hell they want to be.
Well, I tell you what, the teams have as big a problem, right? Where,
Sure.
in the NFL, where Colin Kaepernick is toxic, in the NBA, Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr and anybody else say and do sort of kind of whatever they want politically, whereas in the NFL, if you work for Jerry Jones, clearly you have to share Jerry's love of guns and America and Donald Trump, and if you don't, then, you won't be around here long unless you beat your wife and you can sack the quarterback, then you can stay as long as you want. I find that to be a really incongruent message for everyone, and I think the NFL, more than any other league, is really struggling with it, with a bunch of really white right owners who have all supported this atrocity, quite frankly, and then you have Roger Goodell, who has a gay brother who he once punched a guy in a bar, the only time he's ever been arrested, according to the internet. And Roger Goodell sees it the other way. And there are a lot of players that see it the other way. There's some coaches that see it the other way. Certainly some fans that see it both ways. Probably more fans on the right side than the left side. But these are the examinations we've had here the last 52 weeks since, we've had a tyrant take over as king, right?
It's not funny. I don't know why I laughed, but perhaps the tyrant part was a little funny.
Wannabe tyrant.
Well, wannabe tyrant, right, in training.
He's spending a lot of time in Asia this week meeting with other tyrants to learn how to do it properly.
Why not go learn from the best? The whole situation with regard to what you're talking about is you've got Roger, who on his own watch is actually basically saying, all right, look, I am here because you hired me to be the voice of the league. You guys can go off and say whatever you want to, but at the end of the day, this, Roger's job is protecting the shield. And that's what Roger's out there attempting to do. Meanwhile, the owners are freelancing on him, and basically, like Jerry and others, are coming out and saying things that are counterintuitive to what what the players want and what this is going to do. I predict, and the NFL as well as anybody out there, I think that it is going to push the envelope when they sit down for the next collective bargaining agreement.
Well, where the control is and who is actually running the show and how and where, they all want one voice, right? Like I remember when the Ravens came to town, Billick was the voice because Art was saying one thing and Ted was saying another thing. Sure. I mean, clearly with the Orioles, no one has a voice. They pretend it's Buck Showalter, but he's really not speaking for the organization. He's just sort of saying something that makes everyone happy because the organization operates incongruently from the message that from their mission statement, or I don't think they have a mission statement. I know the Ravens do at one point, but I think for any organization that has hundreds, if not thousands and millions of people, one voice is not going to cut it in America in 2018, right? I mean, because there is no one voice. There is no everyone agreeing on everything and the kumbaya part of this. And the NFL has worked socialistically on its interior with one voice. We're going to negotiate with, TV carriers in one way and sponsors in one way and the Players Association in one way. We're going to have a unified, all-in approach on all of this. This social issue is not a unified, all-in approach based on your economics, your spirituality, your situation in life, the color of your skin, your beliefs, your values, your integrity, all of that. And I find it very difficult. I mean, I've been doing this 34 years almost now in January, talking to athletes and talking to PR people and having every Kevin Byrne and every John Maroon and every Rick Vaughn trying to run blocker to get their organization put in the best light after an arrest, after a death, after a loss, after a firing, after a hiring, after a snafu. The organizations have all that, but in the modern era, I think they wanted to mute their employees to some degree where the linebacker only stood at the locker 10 minutes a week and did his say, and then you didn't hear from the linebacker again until Sunday after the game. Sure. All that's gone, man. That genie's not going back in the bottle, and I think for any organization that's trying to, quell the outrage on either side of the political side, we're now entering a point where nobody can say anything. I mean, the woman on the bike that flipped the bird to the Trump contingent on the coming out of the golf course for the 73rd day in a row, she got fired. I find that to be we're just in a weird spot right now. We don't know who's allowed to bake a cake in Indiana and who's not. And I don't know that the courts are going to settle this as much as sort of where society decides it needs to be at this point. And sports is at the front of this, right? So we're getting off on a political tangent, but the problem right now is it's come to Roger Goodell's doorstep and Jerry Jones's doorstep, and all of their pants are around their ankles regarding their politics and regarding how because none of them can be invisible anymore. None of them can say, well, I don't talk about God and I don't talk about, sex, politics, I don't talk about any of that anymore. Well, they have to talk about it now because that's where we are.
Right, and the other part of the equation is, we have a very divisive nation. We have people that, there was a great article in the Washington Post over the weekend about the alt-right. There's a number, we are at a point in this country where we are on the doorstep of potential, race war. And we have to be careful. We have to be very, very vigilant. And things like the narrative of the National Football League do not help. We had a wonderful World Series where everybody had a wonderful time and there wasn't any politics involved.
Which is kind of unbelievable to me, given the Puerto Rico situation, that the Puerto Rican players involved, didn't go rogue at some point. And I know, in that environment, you're winning baseball games. All you really care about is winning the World Series. Especially if you're 24 years old and, guys throwing toilet paper out in Puerto Rico and you got to go play baseball and stand for the national anthem and all that. I'm a little shocked that baseball didn't have to deal with something in the month of October in regard to the Puerto Rican hurricane situation.
Well, I think what they did is, they decided, all right, look, we're going to go and raise money and do social things, whether it's social media or or do things within, the environment where they all grew up or whatever. They were just going to raise money and do it and say, look, stay out of politics and just get the money to the people who need it. And that was something they did extensively throughout. They had corporate sponsors that matched their money, and they raised a lot of money both for Texas, for Florida, as well as for Puerto Rico. But they chose not to fight that battle in large part because what they wanted to do was just raise cash and raise awareness that way, and they stayed off the political realm.
He is Jim Williams. You can find him out on Twitter at JWMediaDC. He is blogging, writing for the Huffington Post, multi-time Emmy Award-winning television producer. This portion of our programming brought to you by our friends at Compass Point Golf Course in Pasadena. It is the best place to play this fall and winter. Events, friendly folks, craft beers, night golf. They do a lot of cool things over there. You want to go to compasspointgolf.com to learn a little bit more about what they do. They're down in Pasadena, close to home. So if the weather is treating you right on any specific day, grab the windbreaker and head on down to Compass Point in Pasadena. Also, time to give the king a ring. Lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get to Rosedale and give the king a ring. Tell Paul King, the man behind the cage there, to save me a few bottles of Malbec. I got to get over to Pulaski Highway and get to Rosedale myself. Jim Williams is our defending champion and guest here, writing about all things media, locally and nationally. And, Jim, you know why I darken your doorstep today. You do know of the Annapolis problem that the Orioles and the Nationals, and look, I've been chronicling this going back to when Angelo sat in front of me over at the barn in 1997, now over 20 years ago, and Washington will never have a team, and this is why we believe, blah, blah, blah. Well, now we're 12 years into this. The Nationals are going to be in the playoffs every year. The Orioles are clearly heading in a different direction right now. I don't know what their offseason looks like, but I do know that they've already made one move. They've managed to cancel the Nationals' little exhibition game down at the Naval Academy because we all know that they're there recruiting baseball players in our neck of the woods. And, I don't know that Selig really thought this through with the personality of Peter Angelos. I mean, Selig is thought to be a really bright guy and a smart guy, and he was so taken advantage of. It was such a foolish negotiation all the way through. I don't think there's any shock that 12 years later they're still fighting over hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, that at some point the Nationals will get a little bit of that back or some of that back or all of that back. I don't know how vindictive they'll all get when the old man dies, but for now, it's business as usual. The Orioles have shut down the Nationals exhibition game on the campus of the Naval Academy. PR be damned, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, and there are a few that don't, I mean, the Nationals had a 3-year deal with the Naval Academy. Now, if you know about the Nationals, you know that they've had a long-standing relationship with the Navy Yard, which is right there where, down the street from Nationals Park. And so one of the people at the Navy Yard came to the Lerner family and said, if you wanted to, we could do something fun out at Annapolis, out at the university, at the Naval Academy. And they have a lovely little ballpark out there that seats 1,500 people. And they said, why don't we, play your last exhibition game over at Annapolis? We can raise money for scholarship funds. We can the 1,500 are the 1,500 top students and faculty who basically are being rewarded by being allowed to go to to the game at the Naval Academy. It was the Red Sox and the Nationals played there last year, and then not long after that, Mr. Angelos said that the territory of Annapolis belongs to the Orioles, and therefore he was voiding the contract. And so,
why don't you go get a pitcher? You know what I'm saying? Why put a little energy into signing Machado or Scope. Go do something here in the off season to make the fans happy and make the team better. But Petty is their middle name, right?
Well, I mean, I felt badly because what they did that was so cool is a lot of the guys, Bryce Harper being one of them, went over and stayed the night over at the at the barracks that they have over there, and just really enjoyed having breakfast with the team, with the different midshipmen, and just enjoyed being part of the the academy, and there was the Nationals even offered the opportunity to say, well, fine, if that's not the case, then why don't we do it? Meaning the Nationals and the Orioles play a alternate, and that was shot down as well. So right now, I don't know that they're going to get it back. I know that the Naval Academy is in no interest at this point in time to have the Orioles.
$3 billion. Mine. That's Peter Angelos. Jim Williams is our guest. He is a Washington-based streaming video politics and sports contributor. That's the official word at a JW Media DC on Twitter. He's at the Huffington Post. He's a podcast host and multiple Emmy award-winning television producer. Back to the NFL and back to the problems of Goodell and sponsorship and pizza sales and the manufactured angry sponsor that comes out last week. Now, 30 seconds after this idiot in Louisville starts screaming about his crappy pizza, and we find out that he's in business with Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones owns 150 crappy pizza locations in Texas, as does Peyton Manning, all who have been seen with the orange man with the white mop. And, I don't... You want to have PR, but then the other side of it is Pizza Hut and Little Caesars and Domino's and everybody else comes out and piles on and says, we're selling plenty of pizza on Sunday, pal. Maybe it's because your pizza sucks. And maybe it's because you're playing politics here with the league and trying to strong-arm Roger Goodell through your politics. And, I guess it's paper thin. It's written on onion skin if you follow this stuff. But if you follow this stuff, you would know that all of Donald Trump's, hell-raising with the NFL is his own petty rage about not being allowed into the league. So I don't. The people that see it the right way, and the people that see it the left way see it the left way. But I do know that the pizza backlash on, I call him the red clown with the bad pizza. This is going to. I'll never buy another pizza there. I know that much.
Well, as someone who strongly recommends you buy Pepe's Pizza on on Beautiful Falls Road.
Free plug there for Pepe. All right.
Why not? There's a lot of good pizza in the city of Baltimore. I'm sure you've got 4 or 5 places.
And in every other city that isn't chain pizza,
yeah,
right?
So, I mean, if you want to come up and cry, I guarantee you that the Illich family who owns Pizza will be more than happy to take it. Domino's would be more than happy to take it. So if you don't want to be the official sponsor of the NFL, shut up, and someone else will take it.
Simple as that. He is JW Media DC out on Twitter. And last thing, I know you've been working this week on, really kind of a historic piece, and it's been a long time since Lou Holtz and Jimmy Johnson and Dennis Erickson and Miami and Notre Dame. But, this is what happens when Ohio State and Penn State get their ass kicked in the same week, right? Like, we start talking about, well, who's going to get it? Who's going to play Alabama this year?
Right, who gets that lovely draw?
Well, in the case of this, there's a hell of a history here, and it's kind of coming together this week for the first time since, 30 for 30 or whatever, right?
It goes all the way back to the first time, the last time these two teams were relevant together against each other was, ironically, the convicts versus Catholics, October 15th of 1988.
Some of us are old enough to remember that, right?
I'm sorry?
Some of us are old enough to remember that.
Unfortunately, yes, if we are. So yeah, I think that, some of those, a lot of players from the U that played, of course, on the Ravens and there's some Notre Dame players that played on the Ravens as well. This is, I think everybody gets geeked when there's the potential of a return to prominence of one of the best rivalries of its time when Holtz was there and Johnson was there, because they did not like each other, and it was glorious to watch. I just think it was a lot of fun. I think that people will get a kick out of it. Now, Mark Richt and at Miami and Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, we'll see whether or not they could amp up the Jimmy Johnson, Lou Holtz situation. But I do believe, as someone who enjoys college football, that when you can rekindle some of these rivalries, it's always a good thing.
He is Jim Williams. He is JW Media DC. You can find him out on Twitter for all things political, sports, and otherwise, as well as at the Huffington Post. Always great to visit with you, Jimmy. We'll stay in touch here, and I think we hit on there's plenty going on in the world of sports media in there.
I don't think we missed anything, including some very good political stuff. So
well, absolutely.
Well done, my friend.
Next time we'll get to bowl season and the NFL's injury problems. We'll do that next, all right?
Cool, yeah.
You got it, Jim Williams, JW Media DC. All of this brought to you by our friends at DNL Window Tinting. 26 years of tinting everything. Cars, boats, businesses. They put the shades on the sun and take away the squint. They are in Parkville and in White Marsh, and they'll come to you. Just give them a call. Find them out at DNL Window Tinting. They will put the shades on the sun for you. Also, shout out to our friends at Box Hill Pizzeria. The best crab cakes in Hartford County can now be shipped outside of Hartford County. But if you're up in Abingdon, stop by. Make sure you take some of that salad dressing home. They call it a pizzeria. I've been petitioning them for a long time to call it a crab cakeria because that's what it is. BoxHillPizzeria.com for you in Abingdon. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.